Hello students, this is Professor R.M. Mahendrakar from JSS Arts, Science and Commerce College, Gokak. Today we'll be studying about the types of interactions in a population and a community. Organisms live within an ecological community, which is defined as an assemblage of populations of at least two different species that interact directly and indirectly within a defined geographical area. Species interaction form the basis for many ecosystem properties and processes such as nutrient cycling and food webs. The nature of these interactions can vary depending upon the evolutionary context and the environmental condition in which they occur. Nonetheless, there are several classes of interactions among organisms that are found throughout many habitats and ecosystems. Using these classes of interactions as a framework when studying an ecological community, it allows scientists to describe naturally occurring processes and aid in predicting how human alterations to the natural world may affect ecosystem properties and processes. The different interactions among populations can be classified into 8 types. Mutualism, competition, predation, parasitism, commensalism, amensalism, cannibalism, and neutralism. So now let us study in detail each of these different interactions among the population. Now let us see all those 8 different types of interaction among the organisms in a population and a community. So first let's begin with this mutualism. Mutualism is a type of interaction between two organisms where both the organisms are benefit from each other. For example, lichen. Lichen is a symbiotic association between the fungi and the photosynthetic algae. The fungi component is called mycobiont, which is commonly Ascomycetes member, and the photosynthetic partner, that is called as the photobiont or the Phycobiont, which are green algae belonging to these Turboxia species or dizotropic cyanobacteria, commonly example even nostoc species. So all these are together forming this plant called as lichen. Now in this image you can see, now here you can see the association between the fungi component and the algal component. The green colored components are the algal cells and the other filament-like components are the fungi. Now here the fungi is providing the protection and moisture required for the algae to survive, and the algae in turn is providing food to the fungi, because as you know, fungi are heterotrophic plants. They cannot synthesize their own food. So here this is a association where both are benefited from each other. Another example is this mycorrhizal root. The mycorrhizal root is an association between the fungi and the roots of the higher plants. Now for example, here it's a pinus plant, and whatever the mycelium I was saying, that is the fungal part. Now these fungi enter deep into the roots and form an association, and the plant also alters its morphology to accommodate this fungi component. Now how this algae and fungi are benefited from each other? The fungi, because of its high surface area, has got a greater power of absorption of water and minerals from the soil. So it is providing the water and mineral nutrients to the plant, and the plant in turn is providing food to the fungi. So here also you can see it is a very good example of this mutualism where both are benefited from each. Now even these pollinating birds and insects, when they are pollinating a flower, even that association also we can consider it as a mutualism, because here the insects and the birds are benefited by the nectar and pollen grains, and the flower in turn is benefited because it is helping in pollination. So here also it is that is the pollinating insects and birds are having a symbiotic relationship with all the flowering plants. So even this is a case of mutualism. Another case of mutualism is this fig plant with its wasp. Now here you can see this is a female wasp which has collected all the pollen from another plant and enters into the cyconus of this fig fruit. Then once it enters inside, it starts laying the eggs, and when it is moving around, it is actually dusting the pollen grains which were on its body onto the flowers. So thereby it is pollinating all the flowers inside this cyconus. And then when these eggs hatch, first the males will hatch. The male, when it hatches, it fertilizes the female, and so here the population of the wasp increases, and in turn whatever the pollinated flowers are there, those pollinated flowers will form the seeds, and the male, because it is a flightless insect, it bores a tunnel through the wall of the cyconus and dies, and through this tunnel the female wasp comes out carrying all the pollen grains that were inside from this fig, and then it goes to another fig fruit. So this cycle continues. So here the fig plant is benefited because it is helping in pollination and fertilization and formation of seeds, and the wasp is benefited because it provides a safe nest-like structure for its growth in population. The next type of interaction is this competition. When in the association of two or more species, each species is adversely affected by the presence of other species in respect of food, shelter, space, light, etc., this phenomenon is termed as competition. There are two types of competition: intraspecific competition and interspecific competition. In intraspecific competition, here the competition is seen among the individuals of the same species. And in interspecific competition, this is a type of competition which we see among the individuals of different species. Now here you can see the zebra and the wild beast, they are competing with each other for this source of source, that is water. So now tell me which type of competition it is. Yes, it is a interspecific competition because zebra and wild beast, they belong to two different species. Now here you can see the two wild dogs are fighting for the source of food here. So which type of competition it is? Yes, it is a intraspecific competition where the competition is seen among the individuals of the same species. Even in case of these plants also, we see this competition taking place because in the plants they require sunlight for photosynthesis. So in the forest you see the plants try to go taller and taller so they can expose their foliage to the maximum sunlight. So this competition we see in these plants also. If the plants are of different species, then it will be, yes, interspecific competition, and the plants are of the same species, then it will be intraspecific competition. Now, one classical example of this interspecific competition is this example of the giant tortoise and goat. Now, in Galapagos Island, initially these giant tortoises were there and their population was more. But when the goats were introduced into this island, the population of the giant tortoise decreased because the goats had the better browsing ability than that of the tortoise. Hence, the tortoise were devoid of food, and because of that, the goats population increased and the giant tortoise population decreased. So based on these assumptions, Mr. Gauss formulated this competitive exclusion principle. This competitive exclusion principle states that two closely or distantly related species competing for the same sources cannot coexist independently, and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually. Now, this principle may be true if the sources are limiting, but not otherwise. Thus, the competition plays a potent role in this organic evolution. The next type of interaction we see among the organisms is this predation. Predation is a type of association where one species, that is the predator, eats on or feeds on the another species, that is the prey. Now, for example, if a cheetah eats a deer, so here the cheetah is a predator and the deer is the prey. Even in all the herbivores are examples for predators because they eat the plants. So in predation type of interaction, one is benefited and the other is harmed. And another peculiar feature of predator is the predators are always larger in size and the prey are smaller in size. Predators play a very important role in an ecosystem. Predators act as a passage for transfer of energy across the trophic level. Predators keep prey population under control. Predators also help in maintaining species diversity in a community by reducing the intensity of competition among the competing prey species. Now, some of the examples of these predators are in plants, especially the insectivorous plant. Now, this is a Venus flytrap plant. Here you can see the leaves of the Venus plant has trapped this insect. Now here the insect will be digested and whatever the nitrate requirement is there, that is fulfilled by digesting this insects. So here the plant is benefited and the prey is killed. So this is another example of this predation where a cheetah is trying to catch this deer cub and eat it. Now we shall see parasitism. Now in this type of interaction, here two organisms live together in which one derives nourishment at the expense of the other. In parasitic association, the species which provides the nourishment and support is called the host, and the one which gets support and nourishment is called the parasite. Now there are two types of parasites, ectoparasites and endoparasites. Now here you see this parasite, that is a mosquito, is sucking the blood from the human skin. So it is getting the nourishment from the another organism. So here the mosquito is a parasite and the human is a host here. Now in cuscuta plant also and this hedge plant will see a association. This association also is an example for ectoparasitism. Now here the cuscuta plant which lives on the surface of this another plant. It sends an hostoria into the stem of the plant and sucks the nutrition because cuscuta plant doesn't have any leaves. Now you can see here whatever the thin light yellow colored filament like structures you see, this is the cuscuta plant, and this broad leaved plant, that is the hedge plant here. So this plant is providing the nourishment, so this is the host, and this is getting the nourishment, so this is a parasite. Now in this image you can see a tapeworm living in the colon of a human being. So this is a case of endoparasite, that is they are inside the body of the organism. So also all these different types of algal diseases, fungal diseases we see in the plants, even these are all examples of these endoparasites. Brood parasitism. This type of interaction we see among birds. This is a special type of parasitism. The parasitic bird lays its egg in the nest of its host and let the host incubate them. The example is this cuckoo and the crow. Now, the cuckoo bird lays its eggs in the nest of the crow. Now here you can see in this nest we are having 4 crow eggs and 1 cuckoo eggs, and the cuckoo has modified its egg in such a way that they resemble almost like the crow's egg. So thinking it to be her own egg, the crow will be brooding these eggs and then the chicks will hatch. Then the cuckoo's eggs hatch much faster than that of the crow. So therefore in the nest the cuckoo chick develops earlier than the crow chick, and it gets fed by the crow because the crow thinks it is her chick and goes on feeding it, and the crow's chick, because of lack of nutrition, it may either die or it may get malnutrition, or the crow chick may be pushed out of the nest by the cuckoo chick. So in this way, in that nest, the crow chick doesn't survive and the cuckoo chick survives, and the mother crow, thinking her to be its own chick, goes on feeding the cuckoo chick. So this type of unique parasitism, we call it as brood parasitism, which is seen only in the birds. The next is commensalism. Commensalism, this is the interaction in which one species benefits and the other is neither benefited nor harmed. Now the interaction between these irrigates and buffaloes. The buffaloes are grazing, but when they are grazing, what happens is many of these leaf-eating insects, they just fly off, and these flying insects are caught by this irrigate. So irrigate is benefited, but these buffaloes are not benefited or harmed. So such a type of interaction where one is benefited and the other is neither harmed or benefited, we call such a type of interaction as commensalism. Another example of commensalism is the association between the suckerfish and the shark. Now, when the shark bites a prey, some of its fragments just escape its mouth, and these are taken by the suckerfish which eats it, and thus the suckerfish is benefited, whereas the shark is neither benefited nor harmed. Now another commensalism is this epiphytic plants. The epiphytic plants are the plants which grow on another plant. Here the epiphyte is benefited because it gets protection from the grazing animals, because it's growing on another tree, and the whatever the dust and moisture that is collected in the bark, that is taken, but the plant on which this epiphyte is growing is neither benefited nor harmed. So epiphytic plants, the association with shark and suckerfish, and the ergot and these buffaloes, these are very good examples of commensalism. Amensalism. In this type of interaction between two species, one species is harmed and the other is neither harmed or benefited. The algal blooms can lead to death of many fish species and other animals. The algae is not benefited, but the death of these animals take place. So here the fish and other animals are harmed, whereas the algae is neither harmed nor benefited. So this association, we call it as amensalism. Now this Chlorella vulgaris, this is the algae which is a toxic algae. It releases toxic substance in the water by which other algae are harmed, and Chlorella is neither harmed nor benefited. So all these are examples of this amensalism. The next interaction is this cannibalism. This is the type of interaction which is limited within a species. Here, the bigger individual of the same species kills and feeds on the smaller and weaker one. This is a natural method of population control. Now here you can see this leopard has killed its younger one here, and so this is an example of cannibalism. Here in polar bears also with this, we see this cannibalism. Even in cockroaches also we see cannibalism. Then the last type of interaction is this mutualism. In this type of interaction, one species appear to have no effect of the other species. Both have no interactions among themselves and they live independently. Means here there are many species growing together, but neither of them is neither benefited nor harmed. So such a type of interaction we call it as mutualism. Now all the different plant species growing here, you can see this is growing independently, this species also is growing independently, neither this is depend on this, nor this is depend on this, nor this is getting any benefited from this species, nor this is getting any benefit from the other species. So all these are examples of this mutualism. So let us summarize all the different 8 types of interaction we have seen so far. Now here in this chart, we have used certain symbols. Now the plus sign shows benefit, the negative sign shows harm, and the 0 sign shows neither benefited nor harmed. So here in mutualism, both species 1 and species 2 are benefited. In competition, both can be harmed because both will be fighting with each other. So hence both of them can be harmed. In predation, the predator is benefited, the prey is harmed. In parasitism, the parasite is benefited, the host is harmed. In commensalism, one is benefited. For example, we have seen in the case of suckerfish and shark, then we have seen buffaloes and ergots, and even the epiphytic plants. So here they are benefited, whereas the shark and the plant and the buffaloes, they are neither benefited nor harmed. So where one is benefited, another is neither harmed or benefited, we call that type of association as the commensalism. Then in amensalism, one species is neither benefited nor harmed, but the other is harmed. Now, for example, the algal blooms, especially the Corella algae, which produces toxic substances. So, Corella is neither harmed or benefited, but the other organisms in that aquatic conditions, they are harmed here. Then cannibalism. Now, cannibalism is a type of interaction which we see among the same species, whereas all other they occur in either in the same species or other species. But cannibalism is seen only, it is a type of interaction which is seen only in the same species. So here the stronger one is benefited, the weaker one is harmed. Then mutualism, here none of them are either benefited or harmed. So my dear students, thank you very much. Hope you have understood all the different types of interactions we see in among all the individuals of the same species and the different species. Take maximum care of your health. Use mask whenever you go out.